Hello and welcome to Sunday Funday. Today, my wonderful guest is Gabe Dorado. How are
Hello.
you? Thank you so much for
I'm good. I'm good.
coming
How are you?
on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad I got to get you on. You're my first Cuban American stand-up comic.
Nice.
So, and
Dale.
like, yeah, as we were, you sound so much like my father's side of the family too. So
Pure
tell
Miami
me,
Cuban.
yeah.
You basically just inherited like 10% of the words.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is English, but with the 10% Cuban that you know.
Yeah. Where were you born?
I was born in Miami, but my parents both
Oh,
Cuban.
okay.
Like
Oh, okay. Okay.
my mom from Havana, my dad from Orguin.
Oh, okay. My dad's from Havana too, as well. I don't know where the rest of his family and all that.
Yeah.
I don't because it was different years. So what part of Miami did you grow up in?
I grew up till I was 14 in Alapata, Wynwood.
Uh-huh.
Before it was what it is now. Like now it's like Williamsburg. You know, it's
Oh,
hipsters.
I know.
It's but like I have two friends from high school that actually own a bar 7 blocks from where I grew up in Wynwood, Alapata. That would have never existed when I was a kid. Like it was a completely different neighborhood.
Yeah, I
And,
grew up in Florida, so I know and all half of like I told you, half of my father's side's family, they're all in Miami. They're in Kendall area, and my
okay,
aunt's
well,
a doctor over there. So yeah, I know how I spent a
well, that,
lot of
we ended up,
summers.
we ended up moving. I lived in Alapata, Wynwood till I was 14, so that's 1994, and
Uh-huh.
then till recent we lived in like near Doral, like past FIU, near the swamps, basically near Miccosukee.
Oh, okay. I know where
So
that's
like
at.
100, like you actually where Dolphin Mall is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know
I
exactly.
lived like 5 blocks from Dolphin Mall until until 2 years ago. My family's pretty much spread out now, but
Oh,
I still have family in Miami that actually live in Kendall and in Miami Lakes, and then I have family that lives in Naples now, Sebring, Florida, New York. Like everybody, like all the Cubans, pretty much spread out, dude.
yeah. No, my family's Kendall, Coral Gables. I think I got a cousin on the beach. Surprisingly, I don't have any relatives in Hialeah. Um,
Hialeah.
and yeah, and then I told you earlier, my daughter's father, my daughter, what I lived, there was one point in Vegas I lived, and there's a whole Cuban community over there. And when I lived, the time I lived in Miami, I mean, in Vegas, I was like, how did everybody come here? And they told me a lot of them came in the 90s. And they said that basically, like the church said, where do you want to go? And so they thought, they remember watching one of the movie, I forgot what crime movie or whatever, and they thought like, oh, there's a lot of money there, so there's a big, believe it or not, Cuban community all in Las Vegas. And
Oh,
I happened to meet when I lived there. That's when I met my daughter's father, which is a mistake.
you know, it's funny.
But
Have you ever seen the movie Dance with Me?
dance with me, what's that about? It sounds familiar.
It's Cheyenne and Vanessa Williams. He's
Oh,
Cuban.
yes, yeah.
Like that's kind of, you're saying a little bit of the background, like in Vegas area, like the Cubans that live there, like Chris Christopherson.
Mhm.
I think like in the movie, like the very first scene, the Cuban family that this guy meets is like a Cuban family from Vegas. Like so, that's funny. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
I
I
don't know why
didn't know
you just
that.
brought me right back to that. Like,
Oh, I don't remember. I didn't even watch. I really didn't. I can't remember that movie. I know of the movie because Cheyenne was on it, and I had a friend that was in love with him.
it's a movie that you would have never guessed to be like a pretty good movie because the dancing is great. Like it's very authentic, like salsa, like roots, not like salsa ballroom dancing, like a
Oh, like
salsero,
the real.
yeah, like a salsero has got it, just organically can create a sequence by like or just freestyling. Like,
Right.
yeah.
So how did you end up in New York and become a comic? Because that's
Um,
a
what's funny, the goal, the road of goals changed not a lot, but
mhm.
from Miami, I went to college in Mobile, Alabama. I played baseball in college, and then I quit playing.
Oh,
I quit playing my senior year, and I was always a creature of habit. I played sports. After baseball, I started competing at kickboxing.
Hmm.
To the point that in 2004, I moved to New York. And then at the time, I don't know if you've read the book, The Artist Way.
Hmm. No, no, no.
It's written by Julia Cameron. Kind of changed my life at that moment. And the whole thing of the book kind of made you write three main things that you wanted to do. And one was move to New York. And at the time I was bartending and I was like, I want to bartend. I got like in my head, the movie Cocktails, I wanted to experience that. Like, two was I wanted to try martial arts. I was already doing that. But that wasn't the number one thing on my list. The number one thing on my list was try improv or comedy or acting. Like just in that direction.
Right.
Playing sports my whole life, it was always in the way of what I actually wanted to try doing it.
Right.
So my senior year in college, I took an acting class. I loved it. You don't learn how to act in acting class in college. Like, it's just a good dose of like, do you like it or not?
Right. And builds up that confidence if you could stand up in front of other people.
Exactly. And then the only way for you to learn is to go do it and try to do it and fail. And, just like, well, stand up. I started doing stand up in 2010, but from like 2004, I quit kickboxing 2006 and I started doing improv in 2006, 2007. I did it for 4 years. I was in a bunch of troops. Like, I loved doing improv, but then I got to a point that I was like, man, I have all this improv stage time for no reason. Around the time that I started, I was doing a little bit of sketch. One of the guys, he's another Cuban guy. He brought up the idea that I should write a one-man show. This is like 2007, 2008. And we ended up writing it together. Like, we would meet once a week, and it basically was a 1 hour parody of my life. It was called we called it the Cuban Joe Show. And it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, I got to do it for a few Latino theater festivals at the time. And
nice.
it was pretty. Basically, it was about a Cuban who came on a raft that wanted to be a movie star. Like, that was like the whole hour, what it was about. And then, like, I kind of based it on the Iliad, like Homer's Iliad. But I called it the Ilian because I was Cuban. I was like, oh, because I'm Cuban.
Oh,
Iliad. Like, stupid. But that kind of was what like guided me to write this little play, I guess. What made me start doing stand-up was, after doing this one-man show for a year, like, I started getting burned out playing the same character on stage every day.
Right.
Like, just as cheesy. Like, I was basically playing like my uncle, like an exaggerated Cuban caricature. Like, oi, 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 que hola, oi, que hacer, que hola, oi, where we go. Like, doing that for a whole hour was exhausting. That I was like, man, you know what? I'd rather make people laugh being myself on stage. And I started just going to open mics, and because I was bartending and managing in the Village at the time, I had good connections to like potential to start producing shows, which I don't know if you've ever read like David Mamet, like any of his books before, but David Mamet's like a very famous playwright. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, okay. Yes.
He was an actor. He basically started writing his own plays because he wanted to work. If he wasn't getting casted in anything he was auditioning for, he wanted to still get on stage. So that was kind of my theory when I first started doing stand-up. Like I just started doing this. I'm not a big name. Like, unless you're a famous name, you're not going to get easy access to the stage. So
right. Yeah.
I kind of had the same approach. Like, you know what? If my only goal right now to do stand-up is to get better and to get funnier and to get to stage time, then I'll just create my own opportunities to do it.
Yeah, that's how you have to be now. You have to you can't sit there and wait for opportunities. Sometimes you have to make them.
Yeah. Well, I just, when I see, there's so many levels when it comes to like in any field, like acting, stand-up, singing, like levels you gotta pass and levels that you have to like experience also to grow. I knew the reality was like the only difference between like a person that performs at the Comedy Cellar or the Comedy Store, which are like the two biggest clubs in the world, is that they perform a lot. Like, their reps are a certain amount of reps that don't sound normal to the average person.
Right.
And I think it's just like going to the gym. The only way for you to get in shape is by going to the gym a lot.
That's
So
true.
that's why, like,
Getting up and performing, and then having to write your own stuff.
100%. But
Yes.
that's what your learning curve has to find, that balance for both. Because the thing is that you have to get on stage. That's the only way for you to become a better performer. Like,
Right. Now
like you have to.
I have to ask you a question, because being Cuban from Miami and then all of a sudden going to Alabama for college.
I played baseball, so that was easy. Like,
No,
that's like,
but living in Alabama versus Miami,
oh, it was weird. It's crazy.
how was the culture shock? Because my oldest just went to FSU, and she graduated in Tampa, Florida. But she had a lot of people around her, a lot of Hispanic people around her and all that. And it wasn't so much of a culture shock for her. Well, it was a little bit in Tallahassee, but I can't imagine how it was. I understand you were doing base. How was that culture shock? Because I remember the first time I ever went to somebody that wasn't Hispanic's house for a birthday party, and they only served cake. And the culture different. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah.
being Latino, when you go to that first birthday party and it's not a Latino's birthday party, and they're just serving cake and they're giving you, they're like this big, like the little piece of cake like that, and that's it. And there's no other food, like no croquetas.
That's hilarious.
Like, how was that?
What they have just noticed is, like, in positive ways, almost all cultures are the exact same thing.
Really?
Like they have their version of croquetas. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to be open to eat them. Like, I'm not a picky eater, because I don't know. Like, when I first moved there, like I'm a very friendly social person, so it was easy for me to make friends. And it's funny is, out of all of the Latinos, when Americans, like, just the white society hears Cuban, it's like, oh wow, oh, Cuban, oh wow, like party. Like, so right away I was just stereotyped with something positive and uplifting for people. Like, oh, you're Cuban, oh cool. Like, so it's so dumb. It's such a dumb thing. But the only hard part was like a lot of people were like, I was the first Hispanic they ever saw. So like the ignorance was a little crazy. Like, they're like, oh, you, like, they would hear me talking like, you speak Mexican, and like, dude, I speak Spanish. Like,
God.
Like Mexicans speak Spanish, dude. Like, they don't speak Mexican. Like, it's
right, yeah.
But that was the only kind of like when I culture
But
shock.
The food. My cousin, he's born and raised in Miami. He went to school in somewhere in Georgia.
Yeah, but fried chicken, pulled pork, pulled chicken, mashed potatoes, freaking cornbread. Like, they have good food. You just gotta.
They have good food.
Yeah.
He lost 50 pounds. He didn't get the
dude.
freshman 15. He lost literally 50 pounds going from Miami. I don't know. I forgot, Savannah, Georgia. That's where he was.
Oh my God, I almost went to school there. They actually, that's one of my favorite places to go visit. They have the best food ever. Yeah.
They do have well, he lost 50 pounds. I don't like
that's crazy. You know, Savannah, Georgia is considered New Orleans' sister city.
Oh, okay.
So it's very Cajun food. Like, dude, that place, I love.
Good. But you liked Alabama? You liked it really like that? You didn't have no culture shock with the food? Yeah.
It was very limited. Like, there wasn't really, like, for example, like New York City or Miami or LA, I can go to a good sushi place. Like, I can go to a good Thai restaurant. I can go to a good, like, like, I can go to anything I want. Like, in Alabama, like, what you considered a good sushi restaurant, well, like, is bit like, it's pretty gray. You know, like, it's It was the best thing that they had there, but it wasn't. I remember the first time that my brother took me to a sushi restaurant when I moved to New York City. This is 2 years before I moved here. It was like 2002. I felt like I was in, like, Disney World, dude. Like, the pieces of sushi that I got at this place in Forest Hills, Queens, was the biggest piece of sushi I ever saw in my life compared to what I would eat, like, in Alabama. So that's the thing. It was just a different kind of food. Like, the food didn't. I'm not a picky eater, so the food didn't really affect me. Like, I love Cuban food, but I love, like, my girlfriend's Italian.
Oh, okay.
Her mom loves me because I go to her house and I'll eat everything.
But in our culture, we were raised to eat.
Of course.
We were raised to eat. Like, we Italians though, like Italians, you could do, but when I just remember like going to a birthday party, I probably was 10 years old, getting the little piece of cake and then being like, where's everything else? Like, I was like, where, like, I'll never forget being like in shock, going to my first non-Latino birthday party and being like, well, where's the food? Like,
Well, actually, the first white Baptist wedding that I went to, we
oh,
we
I
got
gotta
there.
hear about this. I gotta hear about
Well,
this.
and it's funny, nothing really. We got there 15 minutes late, and the wedding was over.
Oh,
Yeah, no, like it was like one of the guys on my baseball team getting married. We show up and we get there 15 minutes late, and it was another wedding already like happening.
but what about the food?
They were everybody was already at the reception, but the thing is, like, me and the only people that were late were me and the only other half Cuban Puerto Rican baseball player on the team.
Right.
We both figured it was like a wedding in Miami that's going to start an hour late because it starts at 3 and you take pictures and it doesn't really start till 4
Oh yeah. That whole hour before they go
Yeah.
to the reception.
for the pictures. Well, that's
Yes.
we assumed that was going to happen. We got to this wedding, the wedding was over. I was like, oh my God, like no way.
So,
But that's just from being in like Cuban time.
right. No, exactly. Because that's what I'm saying. There's a world of difference when you leave your little area, your pocket. I've experienced that though, because I've lived in different places, and I'll never forget when I was in Vegas too. I'll never forget like when I first went to the West Coast, the culture shock of different words people said, and I had to learn a whole different Spanish, and I was like, whoa, this is different.
I mean, it's funny you say it because like until now I've never really like made the parallel from like moving to Miami to Alabama, from Alabama to New York. But I also lived in Costa Rica for 6 months at one point.
Wow.
This is like, I would say like 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm. What brought you there?
It's the only break that I've ever taken from stand-up comedy. In my 12 years doing it. I helped open a bar down there.
Oh, okay.
And then I was only supposed to be there for a month, and then I ended up being down there for 6 months.
You just didn't want to leave.
It was a combination of two things. Like it was a first at the time, it was at my 10 years living in New York. It was the first break that I got getting outside of New York City for more than a week.
Well, I understand.
Like at that point, I hadn't had a vacation longer than like 6 days or 5 days or 7 days. So going to Costa Rica it was going to be 3.5 weeks at the time. I was like, dude, how many chances? I haven't got I'm getting paid to to help open a bar down there. How many times did you get the chance to do this? So I kind of embraced it completely. And then at the time, I wanted to see the operation succeed. And I kind of fell in love with Costa Rica, that I was like, you know what, I can stay down here a little longer. It ended up being like a disaster of a project because of the owners that I was working with. But I knew it was weird. Like it was one of those moments in your life that like I knew it was going to be like 1 foot forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah.
But it was going to put me in a better position. Because after when I finally moved back to New York, it made me learn like my value of just what I wanted in life. And like I loved Costa Rica, but I was like, this is a place to retire. Like every American that lived in Costa Rica was done with America.
Right.
Like they're part of the lifestyle there. Like you own a business and you live down there. Like I'm not. At the time, I had just been doing stand-up for, I would say like 2 years, 3 years, and I was in a good position stand-up wise, like just starting, getting as much stage time as possible. I was already running shows at the Grizzly Pear, and it made me realize that, you know what, I'm not ready to retire from life in New York, and I want to at least see my goals all the way through until I come back and live down here. I can see myself living in Costa Rica easily, like at the later point of my life.
Yeah. No, I get you. I'm in the same position too. Like there's still more, there's still New York. There's still a lot of things in New York that I want to accomplish. But I could see myself living somewhere else once I'm retired.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's good
too much in the grind, dude. Like,
right. And New York gets you stuck.
It does get you stuck, but at the same time, like it's
opportunities.
They can constantly keep growing, and you're that idea, that brand, that whatever you're doing, it just constantly keeps getting better and better by you being in the mix. Now, however, I'm starting to see a lot of people that have left New York City and still do well because they figured out the formula. And it's a little harder at first, and there's not as many opportunities, but I think you know how to make the opportunities in front of you count more when you go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
Hey.
New York and LA are the top two for creatives, but I've seen other people, other places, and I know what you're talking about because like people going to Austin, people going to Vegas, and they somehow make it happen.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the big opportunities are in the two cities, either LA or New York, which I was lucky to live in LA for 10 wonderful years. And I love that city a lot. And I just feel like between these two cities, if you're a creative person, if you're doing stand-up, if you're, you know what I mean, you're an actor, even if you're doing music, I think
Yeah.
you need to be on the one of the two.
Well, I
Perfect.
think it's fun. It's weird. I think those 2-3 places are the places that give you the other opportunities.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's
And
bigger, they're bigger doors, or bigger gatekeepers. Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I lived at LA it was a very, I really like living there. I enjoyed it, but then you do, there's some things you can do there that you can't do here. And you know what I mean? But either one is just as good.
yeah,
So where have you been predominantly doing comedy you said the Grizzly Pear?
the Grizzly Pear. Well, I don't know if you know any backstory on it.
No, share with me. We've got time.
So I've been doing stand-up since 2010.
Mhm.
I started producing shows there like 2012.
Mhm.
It was just a Grizzly Pear bar at the time. The dive bar in the Village. At the time, I would basically say it was the best batting cage for a stand-up comedian because there was always comedy shows going on there.
Mhm.
Old school guys in the street, barking, selling tickets, high free comedy. Forever it existed like that. There was just no organization. You know the show on HBO, Crashing?
Yes.
Because of that show, that first season 1 was filmed at the Grizzly Pear.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know I have
Um,
some friends that have worked on that one.
what that show indirectly made the Grizzly Pear a comedy club because in season 1 they labeled it as a Grizzly Pear Comedy Club. That's where Pete Holmes was doing his act.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny how life like parallels. Our guys selling tickets in the street during that, like right after season 1,
Mhm.
started selling tickets pretty easy to our shows because they're like, oh, because tourists were walking by New York City, oh, this is where Crashing's filmed. So right away, like it became like a big wave of just every weekend we started selling out shows more and more because this is where Crashing was filmed. Oh, 7 years ago, it organically basically turned itself into a comedy club. At one point, the owners picked me and Kenny Warren, who's my partner, like that runs the comedy at the Grizzly Pear.
Mhm.
They basically picked me and him that we want you guys to run this as a comedy club, and we're comics, so at the time it was like very new to us to run a comedy club. But a great opportunity as a comedian to now be able to get stage time. And the one thing that cohesively like made sense when we did it was we just wanted to make the place one establishment. It was
Mhm.
I think the Grizzly Pear before we made it a comedy club was very much like the Wild West. Like you had like your place that you hung out with with your gang,
Mhm.
and that gang had Tuesdays and this gang had Wednesdays, and there was no community at all. There was no organization, and that's pretty much all we did. We made a schedule with all the producers that kind of joined that wanted to be part of the Grizzly Pear Comedy Club,
Right.
and now it's pretty. In a weird way, I'd say we kind of made it like a corporate environment because we just kind of made it more organized. But our main goal was just to have a place where we can get better at doing comedy. Because at the end of the day, all stage time is practice.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it's like it on you look at the top 5 comedians, every club that they go into is stage time. It's practice for their special.
Right. Yeah. No,
So
you
like
have to keep on using your muscle.
exactly.
Yeah, your comic muscle.
So that's, I mean, so that's right now, because I run the Grizzly Pear, I'm probably there 80% of the time as far as my shows.
Mhm.
I get booked monthly all over the city. It just I'm probably at the Grizzly Pear, I probably do like 12 spots at the Grizzly Pear a week.
Damn.
And then I probably do like 5 outside of the Grizzly Pear a week at different clubs.
So how many hours are you working? God, jeez. So you're
Um,
like,
well, I
wow.
manage it. I make the schedule for the comics.
Uh-huh.
I book the headliners with Kenny. I also produce shows on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's
Oh,
because
wow.
I'm gonna be there anyway, you know. And it's I
Right.
this is more my my hospitality, my bar manager mentality. Like that's why I guess it made sense for me. It's weird. The reason I managed bars so long is because it made my schedule easier for stand up.
I understand. Yeah. Because you,
Like when I started doing stand up, I was managing a bar a block away from the Grizzly Pear, and that's actually how I first started doing stand up. After my one man show, and I was interested in doing stand up, I became friends with a lot of the stand up comedians in the neighborhood that produce shows. I would give them like a free shot, and they're like, "Oh, you want to go do 5 minutes?" And that's kind of how like my first stage time was me leveraging, like me trading like free booze to get on stage. But it worked.
hey, yeah, you gotta.
But it's in the middle, like in the middle of my bartending shift, I'd be like, "I'll be right back. I'm gonna do 5 minutes next door," and that's how the whole pattern started.
Damn, so you would be bartending and then you would go in, go do a quick set and come right back?
Come right back. I'll be like, I'll let the bar back or the manager like, "Can you watch the bar for like 5 minutes?"
Wow.
So
That's the beauty of being in New York.
yeah, oh sick, like absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because only in New York, because I recently interviewed a couple comics in LA and they kind of like dream, oh, I heard in New York you could just take an Uber and this. And one girl got so many tickets, it was unreal.
Well, you get, I mean, I think this is the only place that
Yeah, only
from
city.
from bottom to top you can do like 5 to 10 spots in one day if you want. Like
Wow.
the most I've ever done is 6, but like some people have done like 9, 10, and they're all in train subway distance. In Miami, in LA, it's crazy. You have to drive an hour to do one spot. Like if you're in Miami, you got to drive to West Palm Beach for your 8 o'clock.
Oh,
From West Palm Beach, you got to drive to Fort Myers for 10:30. Hopefully, make it back to Miami by 11:30 or 12 to
yeah,
make your spot. Like that's the only thing that I'm grateful for in New York City. That which is why,
right.
like I said, you become a better performer because you have more opportunity to get on stage. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's more exposure too, and more people overall. As it's,
yep,
I've seen other cities and it's usually like in Tampa, for instance, they just have like headliners
yeah.
clubs. Yeah. So it's just not too not exciting. I don't know. Like I'm so accustomed to big cities. It's hard for me to be in a small city. Like Tampa to me, I have a house in Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa's small.
Well, you know, it's as a performer though. Like what I've learned is it doesn't matter how good you are in one city. You have to learn what it feels like to perform in every city.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that the different comedy in every city is different.
It's like it's like the Matrix to me. Like you're like you have to
Yeah.
download that program in your head so that you know what it feels like. Like you know what it feels like to be on stage in Denver. You know what it feels like to be on stage in San Francisco. It's a different demographic. Your jokes, although are going to be funny, you're going to have to say them from a different point of view because it's just different. It's just different segment. I think even in New York City, every different stage, every different neighborhood changes your point of
Oh
view
yeah.
of how you
Yeah.
put your jokes.
Yeah. No,
Which is it,
exactly.
but that's all learning curve. But I think that's why the more you do stand up, you get better and better because you've experienced every aspect. That's why I tell every comic like don't say yes to like every opportunity to get on stage because it's all growth.
Yeah. So you've toured before. Where are some of the places that you've toured at?
I
And
haven't right before COVID, I was on the road a lot. I haven't really toured like, until I have my first actual special. Like right now on YouTube, I have a mini special that we filmed at the Grizzly Pear like a year ago,
mhm.
like right when COVID was ending. But I don't want to actually say like I don't want to. I'm being very like professional in my head. Like I don't want to consider actually touring. until I'm going to start promoting my first special.
Oh,
Which
okay, I understand.
my goal is in a year and a half to do my first hour special. I've performed in, I haven't gone to LA yet. I've done Vegas, I've done Denver, I've done Boston, I've done Florida, I've done Alabama, I've done almost the whole Eastern. See, like I've done DC, I've done Georgia, like the Carolinas.
Uh-huh.
I've done the whole northeastern side of America. Managing a club gets you stuck there a lot, which is why like I given myself a goal now, like post COVID, is to go on the road at least like twice a month and just have yourself, because that's the only way you grow. Like right now I'm performing in New York City a lot, but my last show outside of New York City was in Atlantic City a couple of months ago. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I do Atlantic City very often, but I just haven't gone up
You
there.
haven't had a chance. Well,
Well,
yeah, how can you when you're managing a club? Like you're pretty
Well,
much like,
I finally had the freedom to do it now. We just opened a new Grizzly Pear Comedy Club like 3 months ago, and that's the last year and a half, that's why I've been so busy. We were supposed to open a year ago, and just the preparation to open this new club has taken a big focus.
where there's a new club where in Atlantic City or
in New York City.
Oh, okay. Oh, you did like a grand opening or something.
A brand new location, second
Oh,
location.
a brand new location.
Yeah. So this is why I haven't been on the road traveling a lot, performing a lot.
Right. Oh, you're handling a lot of stuff.
It's I almost have it down to the point now that I can actually autopilot it and I can go be a comedian again.
Right.
But right now it's such an early, it's like a baby. Like it's in the early
Where
stages
exactly is this new location?
So the original one is on McDougal Street and West 3rd, right next to the Comedy Center. The new one is on 54th Street between 8th and Broadway.
Oh, in Midtown.
Yeah, Midtown. Okay. Really nice location. Like I'm so used to the one downtown. It's a dive bar mentality. It's a good it's almost like I was gonna say like a place like in Alabama, but like like
it's just like a place in Alabama in the middle of Midtown New York. Come on.
It's just like a kind of like a very divey looking place.
Oh, it's a very divey looking
that gets packed and does comedy shows. This place in Midtown, the owners, like I give them a lot of credit. They put a lot of love and thought into opening the place. You walk in there and you feel like you're in a comedy club. Like it's a good environment. It's got such a great vibe to it. It's right across the street from the original Studio 54.
Oh, nice.
So their theme was one side of the room, they paid homage to Studio 54 and all the great pictures of all the great celebrities who used to perform there. The other side is pictures of all the like comedians that have been locked up. Just like mugshots. It's just
mugshots of comedians.
Yeah, mugshots of comedians. But it's cool because it's after like 3 months now, you can already feel the energy of since week one of comics coming in, showing their heads now. Even like more and more tourists are walking in because just the names are starting to get out there. So I'm really excited about it because even as a comedian, it's already made me a better comedian on stage performing at this place. Because like I said, it's just like the Matrix. I've downloaded a brand new program from scratch.
Right. You're being strategic.
What's I just think for example, like the Grizzly Pear downtown, I've performed in that stage for over 10 years.
Wow.
So you know every little funny detail about the place.
Yeah.
And a little side joke because you've heard it, you've lived it. Now opening, like performing in a brand new stadium, in a brand new arena, stage, whatever you want to call it, you're getting all the new kinks out of it.
And so maybe some new traffic too, because I think over there in Midtown, it's a whole different audience, more business people.
It's a very touristy, I would say downtown is 50-50. You get 50% tourists, 50% Bridge and Tono locals. Midtown, it's like 95% like tourists.
So it's a whole bunch of tourists. So you have to do more marketing towards like the old fashioned style, be outside and
absolutely. Pass out flyers.
Yeah. Use
old
sticker.
School.
Yeah.
Is that a German Shepherd? Is that a German Shepherd behind you?
Oh yeah. Is he coming right behind you? Yeah, that's my dog.
Nice.
He just had to go break into, he had to come jump in there. Jump into the action. He wanted some attention. He wants a spotlight too.
Nice.
So growing up in Miami and everything, now you didn't know you wanted to be a comic when you were young, but did you ever admire any comedians when you were young?
Yeah. I mean, I admired performance, I guess.
Mhm.
My dad played salsa his whole life. None of his sons played an instrument. I had two older brothers. We all played sports, but nobody played any instrument. Nobody performed. Growing up, I loved Robin Williams,
Yes.
Richard Pryor, George Carlin. They're not the reasons why I want Steve Martin. They're not the reason why I wanted to get into stand-up, but they made me admire comedy as a kid. Like I always wanted to. SNL was probably my favorite show as a kid.
Me too. Me too.
And that was kind of my dream. Like if I would have had the ideal dream is to make it. I didn't know how I was going to make it famous, but to be a guest, like a guest star on SNL.
Right.
And like that's always been the fantasy in my head of like make it that famous that you get asked to be one of the guests on SNL, like for that 1 week.
Right.
So I guess even growing up when I was like younger, Will Ferrell was probably one of my favorites, and not even stand up wise, just like funny.
Right.
Stand up now, that's said probably since college, since I was like 17, 18, like inspired was Bill Burr, Chappelle.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like Jim Gaffigan, Mark Norman, probably very current guy that's pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think this is my instrument. Like I think my instrument has always been like I've always enjoyed writing, and I've always loved laughing is my favorite thing in the world to do, which is why I like comedy.
Right.
It didn't matter what style comedy was. This is, I guess, the one that I've decided to do now.
Yeah.
But I think it's just I had an appreciation as a kid, and I didn't realize it going to all my dad's gigs, like growing up.
Mm-hmm.
My dad played salsa with my dad toured. My dad was Miami Sound Machine's opening act.
Oh, wow.
For a
Oh
few
my
years.
God. That was such a big deal when I was young.
Oh, Cayocho. I did Cayocho every year.
Oh, you did?
Because my dad was in Cayocho, like with his band. So like I didn't, as a kid, you don't appreciate this, but like I would go to this and just watch my dad play the trumpet with his
when we
huge
were kids, stuff got old. Like I know.
It isn't until you get older that you appreciate like salsa
Then
music and the whole culture. Like as a kid, it's funny because as a kid, it was like, oh, I get to play hide and seek with all the other kids. Like it wasn't like I'm gonna go watch my dad play salsa, but my dad played with Celia Cruz.
Wow.
Like my dad's last Cayocho, his band La Tremenda opened for Celia. They were Celia's band for the whole Cayocho.
They're gonna put her on the quarter now.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. Like
yeah.
My dad was pretty good friends with Willie Chirino.
Oh wow.
They just perform. It's just like stand up. Like how I'm pretty good friends with pretty popular guys now because we see each other all the time. My dad saw these guys all the time. So as a kid, I didn't realize I was walking. Like my dad played with Tito Puentes like a few times. So it's funny. I didn't appreciate this at all as a kid until like now I'm in my 40s looking at pictures. Like, oh my God, is this you, Tito Puentes? Like that's awesome. Like.
Well, you had a more fun childhood than I did. You were more connected. You didn't realize. Yeah, you really.
I didn't realize it exactly. Like
no. Yeah, no. My 18.
Well, in my head, I was a Cuban baseball player that was going to make it to the major leagues. That's why.
Well, there was a lot of money. I had a cousin that went to the minor leagues and got a lot of money. I remember like he made 450,000 or something crazy a year. Yeah. We were like, wow.
That's like really fortunate. Like a lot of guys.
He was just minor. He wasn't major.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, even some people that go to the minors don't make that much money, which is kind of crazy. Like that's like he should be grateful. That means he was a good player. Like.
Yeah, I don't know what else happened because it's like a second cousin, but yeah, so I understand. And plus, as kids, they play boys play sports, and then it's with your friend, family and everything else. So I totally get it. But so you're Generation X, not millennial too, right?
I am 1980. So yeah, I get. Is that
Yeah,
X?
you're right at the cusp, but I consider it more generation X, like same thing as me. So it's
I think I'm a Generation X with a baby boomer blood. Like,
yeah, yeah. So we saw a lot of things, the birth of the internet. We got to, like you, I enjoyed watching Saturday Night Live. My thing was though, and part of the reason I didn't want to be a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be behind the scenes and create stuff.
mm,
And I didn't understand the concept of being a producer when I was young. I didn't understand that whole when I looked at Saturday Night Live, it was Lorne Michaels. I was like, ooh, I want to be like him. And Johnny Carson, I was like,
yeah,
oh, I want to be like him, interview. But I never saw females do it.
that's pretty awesome.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
never saw any well, you see females now doing, having production companies and all that
yeah.
other stuff. So luckily now with the birth of COVID, a lot of people are doing independent things. So I finally, like with this podcast. Yeah.
So that's great. That's
Yeah.
funny. Like as a kid, like how you can see a whole picture of people, and that one person is what inspired you to do something. But me
Right.
looking at that exact same picture, I probably
Mhm.
looked at somebody else in the picture that I wanted to emulate.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
which is amazing because like Lorne Michaels is a badass.
I remember seeing him because he was always, he had that humor where he was it humor pan? What's it called? I can't think right now.
Deadpan humor, yeah.
Yeah, he had that deadpan humor and he would keep quiet. But I remember at a young age, I'm like, that guy's running things. That guy's
Yeah.
running. I want to be this guy. Like, I didn't want to be one of the performers or whatever. I wanted to like call the shots. And I also, there's a part of me that I kind of, because when I was in LA, I worked at an agent's office. And then I saw kind of how people bow down to you.
Yeah.
And I'm naturally a little dominant too. I'm a little sadistic like that. So sorry, but I kind of like when I remember working at an agent's office, like I saw how like the actors would come in and then, you know what I mean? People would like kind of bow down. I was like, whoa, that's who you want to be.
Yeah.
Forget being like, so I knew like at a young age, like I saw what they were doing and I admired Johnny Carson for being the one interviewing and everybody wanted to be on his show. And I admired Oprah Winfrey, for instance, because she was probably the first female that I saw that did a lot of things, but I kind of knew, but you
Yeah.
can't really figure it out. Then if you grow up in Florida, you really can't figure it out and I feel like in my cultural background, because like my aunt was a doctor, she was the first like doctor in the family, and some of my family they were pushing like how like family push education.
Yeah.
Go to college, push education. They don't really push the creative. I got in trouble when I went down to Miami and one of my cousins, their daughter was dancing and I was trying to tell her about, I got like yelled at like for this. I was telling her, oh, there's a school called Juilliard and you could,
Yeah.
they're like, no, she's going to be a doctor. I was like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's just how our culture is. And
It's
yeah.
it's funny. You just gave me like a really good flashback of like a moment in my life that made me want to perform.
Mhm.
Because it all ties back to like my love for SNL. And even saying like, because of this idea is why like I wanted to move to New York, and even my parents like, dude, you graduated from college and what are you doing?
Mhm.
But my senior year in college, my senior year in high school, the high school that I went to, it was a Belen Jesuit prep, all boys school.
Mhm.
We were very well known for having a skit that we would do like once a year
Mhm.
called the senior skit. That it would sell out every year because like other high schools would come watch it, or like our own classmates and parents would come watch it because it was basically just like roast. If you call it, it would be called roasting today, but it was basically just sketch comedy, making fun of like every other high school and all the teachers and stuff.
Right.
I played sports. I didn't do any acting or anything at all in high school. And when we auditioned for it, I could imitate 3 of my coaches like perfectly.
Wow.
That the day of the show, we did the show probably like 10 times.
Mhm.
We rehearsed it all week. We did it for every class. We did it like 3 times at night for all the other people that came to watch it. It's probably one of the most enjoyments I ever had in my life, and I had never performed or anything. But but I crushed it. Like I had people laughing so hard playing. I remember playing the coaches that the best compliment that I ever got after was from the theater teacher, the
Right.
professor that from my high school. He goes, "You're an asshole." Like this after the very last play. I'm like, why? It's like, you should have taken my class 2 years ago. You were like planted that in my head. Like, you should have taken my class 2 years ago. Like, you're natural. And as a 17-year-old, you hear this, you're like, oh my God. Like,
Right.
maybe you watch all these movies of somebody making it, moving to New York or moving to Hollywood. So in my head, I was like, man, I really want to try the performance. So as I was playing sports, that idea of like, man, I wonder if I would like acting or try it out.
Right.
Always stayed in the back of my head. That finally, when I moved to New York, is when I finally, that book, The Artist's Way, made me focus on, like, you know what, dude, like, it's something that you got that compliment, which at the time was like 6 years ago,
Right.
and it's been in the back of your head, and it's going to eat you alive if you never face it.
Yeah.
So that's that I think that moment in high school was probably a big moment why I'm still doing stand up today. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Wow. It's funny how when we were kids, we kind of want, oh, and another thing I remember as a kid is I love playing pretend. Like as a kid, I loved when they would have like not doctor, but like, remember in kindergarten class, they would have like a fake kitchen or a fake bank, or, you know, I remember there was a place, it was like a little city, like for kids, and it was, you could pretend and stuff. And I like that, I did like that pretending, and it's just, I really enjoyed it. And I knew like, because my family was pushing the doctor thing, the lawyer, the do this, go to college. They were pushing it down so heavy down my throat. It's weird how like our families pushed, you know, certain people. And then I raised my youngest in Los Angeles. And
my parents gave up.
Yeah. Oh, your parents gave up?
They didn't give up. I think they just accepted that I wasn't gonna like stop
Right.
trying. Like,
I understand.
Like this is what I want to do, and you can't stop me. Like, I was like, this is what I love. Like,
and it's funny, I raised my youngest in LA with everything creative, and you could do whatever. And I tried like being more open with her, and she got her SAG card. She's been on TV shows, and she don't want to work and do any of it. And I'm like, what the hell?
That's a millennial for you, dude. Like,
yeah, no, she is Generation Z, and that's the scary.
Generation Z. That's even scarier. Like,
they're like millennials. Like, you'll have an argument. Like, I used to find them kind of argumentative and like kind of problematic, like with their pronouns and this. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, oh my, that's not my pronoun. And I'm like, and I'm having to stare. Okay. And I'm like, can you put it on your, like, I was like, and I have to tell them, look, I'm a new generation and I'm not used to these pronouns at all. You know what I'm saying? I like, and then somebody was telling me once, well, sometimes mine change. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I can't keep up with, I'm like, look, I can't keep up with you. I'm older. Okay. Like, don't get offended. Yeah, like I can't do, like when they start with, this is my pronoun, and then the one time they said, oh, but it changes every once in a while. And I'm like, look, I can't keep up with you. If you're going to change your pronouns, change your name. I'm like, this is too much. But Generation Z, oh no.
Whole nother story.
Oh no, this kid has a SAG card. And you know, she was on a couple of TV shows when she was young. She was in commercials. She was real talented. She's about 5'96", maybe 100 pounds the most. Looks like she's 12 years old at 18 years old, and wants to work at sandwich shops. And then goes to me and whines how hard it is to make money and how tough in life it is. And I'm like, and then another thing, she was super smart. Smart. She goes, I need a break from college. Oh, and she came in second in her high school class.
Oh, wow.
This is in a school in Manhattan. Every opportunity. Yeah. And needs a year break. So in school,
Jeez.
so
It's a
Generation
year
Z,
break.
a year break is turning into two, and I don't know, it's always something. But she is good with makeup, but I don't know. Let's see. She's at her third sandwich shop, so the kid better make a hell of a damn sandwich. For real.
Seriously.
It's something, but I'm done. There's no more kids. The oven's done.
I don't have any
I'm
kids yet.
over it. Oh, you dodged a bullet.
Man, you know what? It's coming around the corner though, because I've been with my girlfriend for 7 years. She's
Oh,
33. She's 33. I'm 42, and
she's Italian. She's gonna, and
she's
the
Italian.
family's.
Her well, it's literally like that, dude. Her mom and her sister are starting to corner me, like
They're cornering you. So everybody's all Catholic.
pretty much.
Oh, that solves
Yeah,
problems.
yeah.
That solves a lot of, yeah,
Same mom, basically, pretty much. Like
yeah.
Cuban mom is the same.
Your family too is Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's the Patrinos you have to worry about next.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Which my oldest, I got her. I went and had, this is the Catholic in me, that I went and had her confirmation, baptism, and all that to prepare her to be a godparent. And then I have my cousins, and they all have kids, and I'm like, and the thing is, my oldest is going to be very successful. She's going to be a lawyer. She's going to be really, really successful. And I'm talking to my cousins, and they're not even baptizing her. And I'm like, she's got her first confirmation. She's going to like make money. What's wrong? Why don't you want to make her a godparent? You know,
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, that's the next step.
That's the next wave. Exactly.
Once you have a kid, then it's going to be the godparents, and you're going to have it on both sides.
Yep.
That's going to be a whole.
On a whole brand new chapter.
Oh Lord, yeah. So yeah. So what are your plans now with comedy next? What are you besides working your ass off crazy? Because you right now, you're probably the hardest working comic that I've interviewed.
I think the way I look at it is, if I didn't say yes to the opportunity that I have in front of me,
Right.
somebody else would be doing it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be getting on stage as many times as I am right now. And I've always had that point of view of like, I look at myself 2 years from now, like how much better of a comedian am I going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And even when I first started doing stand-up, I remember guys that have been doing it for 10, 15 years used to always tell me that, like, wait till you see yourself in 5 years. Like how much better of a comedian, of a performer in general you have. So I've been doing it for 12 years now. I keep looking at it like that. Like, I don't know if you've ever read Steve Martin's book, but he's got a pretty accurate formula for almost every comedian that's extremely famous and successful now. He says that it takes you 10 years to learn how to do comedy, 5 years to get good at it, and 5 years to enjoy it. So 15 years, if you, that's how long anybody that knows comedy, that you can be naturally funny and pick it up, but the years of experience that make you a full season comic, I think it doesn't happen to after your 10 years.
Right.
Like I think you can be very successful. I think you can be funny and having a good 5-10 minute set, but at the rate of these guys doing longer sets now, it has to come from like hours of stage time.
Right. And building
even
more.
just more building more material, more content. Like even this is a funny Ellen DeGeneres. She
I remember when I was a kid. Remember when, because we're about the same age. Remember when we were a kid and she first started out?
Well, I saw her in an interview. It terrified her because she won a competition that was the funniest woman in America.
I remember that competition when watching it when I was young.
And she won it, but what's crazy is what sucked about winning that was she had only been doing stand-up for a year. So she only had 10 funny minutes. She only had 10 minutes of material.
Right.
So now she's getting booked all over America as the funniest woman in America with just 10 minutes. So she said it was the most humbling experience for her first 2 years, because she actually had to learn how to do stand-up, because her learning curve had to like go up super fast to be credible, to be the funniest woman in America. So that's like a huge, like a realistic story of like, you can be naturally funny and somebody can help you write a special and you can do like an hour, but like if you look at it, like, I think Bill Burr says a good analogy is even like really good comics that you know now that put together like a comedy special once a year,
Mhm.
it's not the same
Oh
quality.
yeah. No, because I've watched each and every one of them on Netflix. I watch
What-
each and every.
But
Yeah.
if you look at guys that had specials that it took them 5 years to do, it's almost like
Yeah.
like cooking. Like if you make something in a crock pot, it's going to taste better than putting something on the frying pan for 10 minutes. Like these, like I think some of the comics that like wait more than 1 year and like let their jokes digest and grow. 'Cause I think every joke has like a life, and you can have like a year-old baby joke, or you can have a joke that
Right.
developed
It has to
over 2 to 3.
progress and you've got to keep up with and more
Yeah.
and more. That's why I do have a level of respect for stand-up comedians. And I used to do this show on IG and I interviewed one time somebody that just went viral, wasn't really a stand-up comedian. And the way he was compared to stand-up comedians, he was cocky.
Yeah.
And then I interview stand-up comedians, and it's so much. I have so much more respect for somebody that's stand-up comedian because you can't, like Ellen did. She literally went viral back then, but
Yeah.
then she had to keep it up. If she would have, if she would have let that cockiness, oh, I'm the funniest woman, and kept that up, nobody would have wanted. And
Yeah.
and I learned that too, and that's when I really learned to make a niche out of this podcast. And I said, I only want stand-up comedians here. Because after interviewing somebody viral, I didn't want that big head going on. You know what I'm saying? And I've noticed with different comedians, some of the best interviews is the people that've been around the longest. And that show up, that are on time, that are are the people who've been around the longest, because it builds up character. You're right. And the longer they're improving everything, the performance gets better. So you work a hell of a lot with the man. I just can't believe, like, managing the Grizzly Pear and everything you do. You are really a hustler.
I mean, I want to see my goal all the way through. You know what I mean? Like I've been doing it now, and I think the more important thing for me to keep climbing in my own path is to give myself more and more goals down the road. So like, I think right now I want to see the club do well because it'll make me as a comedian prosper at the same time.
Right.
And this year I plan to go on the road a lot and build my fan base so I can do my first hour next year for my first special.
That'll be good. So thank you so much for coming on. Could you please
My pleasure.
Tell my audience where they can find you, the social media, if you have any websites, Twitter, IG, wherever, so they can just follow you.
Mainly you can follow me on Instagram, Cuban is Funny. TikTok is Cuban is Funny. I have a mini special that I filmed about 1.5 years ago at the Grizzly Pear called It's Just a Pair on YouTube. Just type Gabe Dorado and you'll find it. Go to the grizzlypear.com website. I'm pretty much there almost every night performing. So click on my name and you'll see my schedule. That's me in a nutshell right there. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on Sunday.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.